applying for jobs is super inconvenient. I honestly think
you want him to just give you the job?
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell somebody how much I make unprompted.
Not unprompted. Like, oh yeah, I make this much money.
Welcome to Job Search Stories. I'm Jen, a career coach and your new go-to gal for all things career advice. I'm really excited to share some tips and strategies today.
And I'm Gina, and I'm just a job seeker expert here at Indeed. And together, we're going to help you kind of navigate this crazy world of job searching and help you get the job you want.
Absolutely. And today, we're going to take it back, all the way back for me, and talk about landing your very first job.
Ooh, that's so cringy for me, but let's do it. So how old were you when you applied for your first job?
So Gina, let me set the stage. It's 2001.
Okay, I was in kindergarten. Cool.
I was 18 years old, in high school, about to graduate. My parents didn't want me to work in school because I was supposed to focus on academics.
Love that for them.
And I actually went to this recruiting center for a local grocery store because my sister was applying for a job. Okay. And so I was there and I was like, oh, I guess I'll apply too. And yeah, it was great.
So you never had a job before you're 18? Like nothing?
Not a real one. It was babysitting, things like that.
Okay.
But not paid, real first job.
And so you had to walk in and apply to work at a grocery store.
I had to fill a paper application.
I never did that in my whole entire life. I've never filled out a paper application.
This was a time before applicant tracking systems, okay?
Oh, yeah, because I feel like every job I ever applied for was on the computer. So basically you just walked into a recruiting thing for a grocery store.
Yeah.
And you handed them, or they handed you a paper application, you filled that out. So me, I didn't do that.
What was it like for you? Tell me about your time.
Okay, so I worked at multiple places as a teen. My mom was like, if you want lunch money, go get a job. So I applied online of retailers. I just went to their website and at the bottom it's careers. And I applied for a job. There's been times where I got calls back and I missed them. So I never went in for the interview. And then there's times where, I got called in and they were like, we want to do an interview, and that's how I got my job. So
what were the kind of questions that they asked you? Because my first job, it was grocery and retail. Yeah. And so I imagine there were a lot of the same things. Yeah. But do you happen to remember?
Oh, man, I'm acting like it was years ago, but
it was years ago.
It was 10 years ago. I don't know, they just asked you tell me about yourself. And back then I didn't know how to answer that question. So I was just actually telling them about myself. And then they just asked kind of situational questions, how you would deal with certain situations. If someone needed help with this thing, how would you help them? And just questions like that. But,
and you lied and you said, I would just absolutely, whatever they need.
Yeah. I act like I was a super helpful person, even though I wasn't. But then I actually ended up being the person who was the most helpful at my job. I feel no one wanted to work.
You were able to live.
People just don't want to work anymore.
Sold.
Yeah. So it was really just me actually trying hard at this job that didn't really mean anything. I was just folding jeans and
Did you find yourself nervous in the interview process though?
Oh yeah. I'm just a perpetually anxious person, very anxious. So it was group interviews. That's I would
hiring en masse.
Yeah. So
for those high turnover roles.
Right. Exactly. So I didn't know to expect that until after a couple of the interviews. But I was definitely just super nervous because I was what if I say the wrong thing and this person just looks at me and is she needs to get out of this room right now. Or if I'm in this group interview and the other people are oh, she needs to shut her mouth.
I think they were going to steal your answers because I think you were perfect.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I imagine.
Yeah.
My interview, I've always, especially in interviewing situations, have just been overly confident.
Yeah.
I did speech and debate and academic clubs in high school. And so not to brag, but I totally medaled. Second in state in speech.
Ooh.
And interview.
So you were smart. Okay.
Well, this was before the internet. So
what else was there to do?
Different standards then, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so interviewing was never really an issue for me. I just always felt if you can turn it on and give a little personality, people love a personality hire.
Right. I mean,
that's how I've been getting jobs ever since.
Same. But did you feel like, were you ever like, oh man, I'm not going to get this job? Like after you like applied or after you interviewed?
I'm a pretty solid interviewer. And I'm going to knock on wood because I guarantee I'm probably going to get rejected from the next job that I apply for because I'm putting this out into the universe. Yeah. But the last 6 jobs, and I did count because that's the type of person I am, the last 6 jobs I have interviewed for, I've all received offers for.
Ooh, I think I'm a pretty solid interviewer too, especially before like this job. Like I was like, oh, I do that. I didn't even need to like read about these like interview tips. Like I just was naturally doing that. Natural. So I was like nervous, but I also like feel like if you get a little chuckle out of your interviewer, you're like, oh yeah, they like.
It's got to be a conversation.
Yeah,
they've got to like forget that they're like you're answering the questions, but you got to connect with them, right?
Yeah, and they're just like, oh, this is my friend. I want to work with them. That's the goal. Is to make them like you so much.
It's good that you got that at an early age because I think, sometimes, at least from what I've seen, even working with like college students, sometimes they forget that you're still there with the end goal of like trying to get the job.
Audition. You're literally auditioning.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I'm just curious, like, how do you think it's really changed in terms of like job searching now from job searching way back when?
I mean, you probably have more insight than me because you handed in a paper application. But I don't know if it's changed too much. Like for me, because it was always like online, like that's where you're applying for jobs. Like in high school, there were like, like the job fairs where you would go and like all the places at the mall or like if like what are they called? The outdoor shopping things. What are they called?
An outdoor mall?
No.
What is it called?
What is it called? I actually need to know.
An outdoor shopping thing.
Oh my God. Outlet.
That's
outlets.
A mall. That's technically
but they're called outlets.
Okay,
So there's a name. There was like, I remember in high school, like outlets were opening. So like they would have job fairs for those. Yeah. Like that was the only time where you would like walk in and kind of do like an interview on the spot. So you would like print out your resumes and like you would hand your resume to like the people and they would call you after that. But that's really the biggest difference. We'll get into this, but I do think applying for jobs is super inconvenient. I honestly think
you want them to just give you the job.
Yeah.
You're like, I've expressed interest and trust me, I'm qualified.
Like, honestly, sometimes I just want to like walk into a random building and see if I can get a job at that place. Just for fun. Because honestly, doing like the whole online application thing, getting those little rejection emails like 2 seconds after you apply for a job. Like
it's too much.
It's too much. It's like, my self-esteem goes down a little bit.
It takes a long time. Did you know like the average job search is 12 weeks from start to finish?
That's a long time.
The time in which you actually say, okay, I'm going to start applying for jobs. I'm going to start applying for them. And then you're interviewing. And, by the time you actually get a potential job offer, it's a 12-week time period. It's too long.
It's a
lot.
That's a long time.
That's a quarter of a year.
Yeah. That's a long time.
Did I do my math right? I think I did.
I don't know math. But I just feel like overall, like job searching has always been a little inconvenient, but it's because like that whole auditioning thing, like you're literally like trying to prove your worth to some random person because you need money. Like you need to pay your bills. So I think like it hasn't changed enough to me. Like I think
it could definitely get easier.
It could get easier and it also could get a little more humane. Like I feel like, like we're all just humans who need money and like a job. So I think that like it shouldn't feel as like pressure inducing and like feel like you're going out of your way just so that you can feed yourself.
I will say in terms of what's really stayed the same, I think about my experience just like walking in and deciding to apply for a job.
Yeah.
And it was actually a very similar situation for my daughter, Allison, who's 19.
Yeah.
She just turned 19, but she didn't work in high school because very much the same. We wanted her to focus on academics.
Yeah.
But when she was ready to work, what we did is we were actually picking up Millie, my other daughter, from day school, saw a paper flyer posted on the classrooms saying they're hiring teachers and teachers' assistants. And so she just walked into the office managers, like knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm interested.
Yeah.
They knew us because we'd been going to that day school for years. And she like had a 2-question interview and got a job.
That's still the reality. Like this is so random. I was in like a fast food restaurant and like literally almost the same thing happened. I was standing there and some girl was like, yeah, are you guys hiring? And they're like, yeah, we'll go get our manager. And then
we'll
she
interview
just
you right now.
Yeah.
And you can start working in 30 minutes because we need the help.
Which is really nice. If you guys need more episodes or more help on interviewing, don't worry. We're going to talk all about the interview process in another episode. So make sure to tune in for the next one.
So, Gina, I mean, we've gained a lot of perspective, right? I mean, helping job seekers, creating different resources. I'd like to say we know a lot now.
We know so much.
Definitely more than what we knew then. What would you say is something that you wish you had known before you started out your first job search?
I mean, we kind of talked about it, but like realizing that you're kind of auditioning for an employer. So like, just like putting your best foot forward. Like obviously you instinctually do that because you want the job. But I wish I just kind of knew more that like, they really are trying to like gauge what your strengths are and like what you could bring to the team that already exists.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing is like, you're also like hiring people that you kind of can mesh with and you can get along with. And I feel like that's like a huge part of it. And I know like that sounds kind of bad because, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm hiring somebody that I can stand talking to for 8 hours a day. But it's the truth. Like you don't want to work with people that you can't really like get along with.
Yeah, I think there's also just a lot of pressure that people put on themselves in terms of like having enough previous experience.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting into like first jobs, I think people really do have that understanding that your experience is going to be limited, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be the babysitting, it's going to be the volunteering.
Yep.
It'll definitely be things like that. So a lot of times they're just looking for somebody with like a really good attitude, who's willing to learn. Again, and like you said, who's going to make coming to work a little bit fun because if you're working full time, 40 hours a week there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time to spend with somebody you don't like.
Yeah. And I also think like one thing that you're saying too is like, oh, like they know that you don't have a lot of experience. It's also like sometimes it's like creating the experience for yourself, like doing things yourself. Because in certain industries, you really can like do your own little personal projects that kind of show that like you're qualified for this because like you're super interested in it.
That's a life skill, honestly. Yeah. And that's something that does not leave you wherever you are in your career. Like first job on, the ability to like come into a situation to learn and then always want to kind of do more or improve or use your personal strengths in a different way.
Yeah.
That's really valuable. So
like just like knowing that like
do it.
They're hiring the person. Obviously, like your skills are a part of who you are. So like just like kind of like thinking about like, okay, like looking at this job description, like what in my personal life is going to like make me qualified for this particular job. I think that's like super important. And I didn't really think about that. Like I really didn't read job descriptions when I first started applying to jobs. Like I would see the job title and I was like, yeah, I want to do this. Like
you're like, that sounds fine. I could do that.
Now I know better. But like I legit did not read job descriptions at all. But I have a question for you. So
let's hear it.
If you could like give advice to your past self to like make the job hunt a little easier, like what do you think you would tell yourself?
I actually have the luxury of telling people all the time.
That's true.
As a career coach, I get to tell people all the time. And so especially for first jobs, start with places you know, right?
Yes.
Like thinking about Allison, sweet daughter, walking into this daycare and just seeing that opportunity and just being able to rely on that personal connection.
Yeah.
Like that gets you really far.
Yeah.
Or if you're looking for your first internship or looking for a job out of college. Again, starting with people you know and your network. Like, where have you interned in the past? You know, where do you frequent? And people really know you.
Yeah.
So if you can connect with people and like have that personal connection, it makes everything so much easier, right?
Yeah.
It makes like expressing the interest in wanting a job easier, makes interviewing easier because you've got that rapport already.
Yeah.
So yeah, just definitely start locally, start with the places and the people you know, and then start kind of expanding outward.
I mean, I think you made a good point too about like your time in university hiring. Like if you're really invested in your like future and your career and you're like a college student, like make friends with the people who work in university hiring and like put together those like college like job fairs and stuff because they're
people like me. I want to be your friend.
Literally,
I wanted
like,
to be your friend.
Be friendly with those people because I feel like that's how I like got a leg up. Like I was just always like, hey, like, how's it going? Any cool jobs?
And they know.
They know.
And they know.
It's their
and
job.
There's always employers coming to campus and they always want to know who are the good students.
Yeah.
They want you to make their lives easier. So being able to like be that person who's in the career services office, they want to talk to you.
Yeah. It's their job.
I used to have to go into all the freshman seminar classes just as the career services office. Like they're all like in the auditorium.
Yeah.
And we'd go and give our spiel and say like, here's what we do. Come get your resume reviewed. When you're ready for your internship, come see us.
Yeah.
We'd have to start young.
Oof.
And this was at UT Austin. And then we'd always have to tell them like where we went to school.
Oof.
And I would say, I went to A&M. And they booed me. These kids booed me. And I was like, I'm going to see you at the end of the year. And then you'll see.
And you're not going to get a job.
Now we'll see if I'm ready to help you. I always help them.
Yeah.
I always help them.
You got paid, so you should.
I absolutely help them.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, I remember you.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
My freshman seminars were not like that. So that would have been real helpful. They were like, why do people drink in college? Like,
it was like, you that talk?
Yeah, it was like those talks.
They're like, go to class.
Yeah.
Turn in your work.
Yeah.
Be safe.
And we like learned about the history of our school. That's about it. But it would have been real useful for me to like, because I had to like find the career services people. Like, I don't think they did like their due diligence to like.
They're underfunded.
But I feel like once I did like know those people, like that was what made the job hunt easier. Also, like, this is like super specific to college students too, but like getting to know your professors because they know people. Like they know people who will get you jobs. Like, and they're always like, you should work here when you graduate, which I thought was annoying because I was like, I'm not going to do what you guys did. But still, it was helpful.
I never did that. I probably should have done that.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have made finding a job after college a little bit easier for me.
I mean, I was like a prove all my professors wrong type of person because I
You'd have vendetta.
Literally because they were like, I mean, having a journalism degree, they're like, you should work at your local ABC news station. And I was like, I want to work in fashion. So like I had to like go out of my way and like find a lot of opportunities myself. And I'm like grateful that I did because I got the opportunities. But like I had to kind of be like, can you help me with these assignments that I'm getting for my internship? Like that's how they helped me. So.
Well, that's nice. I mean, you're able to build a relationship that way.
Yeah, I'm
that's
lovable
really
and likable.
That is absolutely true. They're like, Gina, anything for you.
Yeah.
I just want you to succeed.
Yeah, of course. And look at me now. Super successful.
Successful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel that.
Well, okay. I mean, at least you had a really good relationship with your professors. Do you think that we shared some really good advice, but do you think there was any bad advice that you received?
I probably got bad career advice from my peers because like, you know what I mean? Like we don't know anything. So like
peers are the first place students go.
Because you're literally only talking to your friends. Now
you're like, you had a job.
Yeah.
How do I be successful?
Yeah. I mean,
You
granted,
did
like
it?
I was like the person that people went to for career advice because of like me getting all these
Look where it took you.
opportunities. Me getting all these opportunities like by myself. But I probably gave like really bad career advice. Like I was 19. Like what did I know? I think the career advice that I got didn't fit for who I was as a person. Like definitely not super extroverted. So like, you know, networking was never like my thing. Like I just didn't like it. It made me really uncomfortable. And, you know, in journalism, like they're like, it's all about who you know.
You're talking to like everybody. You're interviewing. You've got to like hunt down your own sources.
I mean, that was easy because it's like there's like a purpose and like you're trying to.
It was intentional.
Yeah, but like if you're trying to like put yourself out to get a job, like I was such a like put my head down and do the work type of person, not like I'm going to get my next opportunity by like making nice with this random person. Like, you know, so that just didn't work for me. And like, we'll talk more about networking because I hate it. And I think other people probably hate it. But yeah, like that just didn't work for me. Like saying like, you need to network to get a job.
I know. I love networking.
Because you are like a personable person.
Because people like me.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
But people,
but
people need to network with you to like be able to be successful.
Oh my gosh, am I someone people need to network with?
Yeah, like I mean you're a career coach. Like,
oh yeah, they want jobs. Okay,
that's what I'm
makes
saying.
sense. That makes sense.
That's what I'm saying. Like
there's a reason
with,
people reach out to me.
Yeah, networking with a career coach is like smart. Like because it's like
is that why we're friends? Gina.
No. We're friends because like you're very likable. But what was like bad advice because you obviously I feel like it's not super obvious, but like if you're a career coach, there's probably something missing for you when you were like looking for jobs and you were like, I'm going to fill this need for other people.
Well, I think one thing that I still see, and this is very specific to first jobs, but the need for a resume.
Yeah.
Even just like talking with Allison and like getting her to apply for opportunities. She's like, well, I don't have a resume. I haven't put one together. And it's like for a very first job in certain industries and for, for certain roles, like you really don't necessarily need one. Yeah. You can just get that job and then use that as what you're going to build your resume off of.
Because I had one like in high school and it was useless. Like, you know what I mean? Because it had like, my extracurriculars and like stuff like that. And then it's like, that's not a job.
It had your hobbies?
Yeah.
What are your hobbies?
I was like, professional or competitive dance. Like, like I put that on there. And it's like for years I put like, when I was 3, like up until like, when I was like in high school and like, I was like track and field, like medaled and like the state, like it was just like me bragging about the fact that I can like run fast. Like,
well, that's a humble brag. I mean,
that's also a skill. Like if you're going to work someplace where you have to run around a lot.
Truth. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who's hiring an intern right now. And she was talking about these resumes that she's been receiving. And people are still putting hobbies on there. And she just had one where the person put that they enjoy long walks on the beach.
That's beautiful. I would hire someone though. if I saw that, I'd be like, cute.
But is it relevant to marketing?
I mean, that's why we also like have a whole series on like how you can make your hobbies into skills to put on your resume. Like how like don't like put like the actual hobby, but like if you like long walks on the beach, maybe you're like a contemplative person who likes to like think about things or something like that. Like I don't know, you can put something, I don't know, resume skills, but like it could find a segue into
It should definitely be intentional. It should definitely be relevant to the role.
Yeah.
Those are keys.
Yeah. But overall, I think that we both probably had like not great like advice, but like I don't think anything is like, if someone's willing to give advice, I don't know if it's like horrible. Like it's never going to be like horrible.
There's probably
or, like,
some kernel of truth in any advice that you're given.
Because it's more about like where you're at, like what stage you're at in your career, and then like what type of job you're looking for. And I think a lot of people like they're giving the advice that they can give because of what their job experience is. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't give advice to somebody who wants to be an accountant because I don't know anything about that. Like, I really just know about, like, what I do and how it can, like, I'll
actually counter that, though, because that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So and this was actually a fear that I had being in career coaching.
Yeah.
So when I worked at the university, I worked specifically with students in the College of Education. So PR, marketing, journalism.
Yeah.
I also worked with some business students.
Yeah.
And so after that, I transitioned into tech career coaching. And I was like, have a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm like, okay, I know the foundations of coaching.
Yeah.
I know solid resume advice, interview advice, but like, is it, how different is it? Because these are two opposite industries.
Yeah.
And the reality is that the foundations of career coaching and career development advice are pretty solid and transferable across the board.
Yeah.
Like the examples that you give and how you relate it to certain roles is different. But if you got good advice, it's going to be good advice for just about everybody.
That makes sense. Like, do you feel like you like felt like, oh, am I qualified to like help these people if I like don't understand what they do?
Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah. When you're like, okay, let me try to explain or understand what a tech stack is and what you use. The really scary ones were like the CIOs or like CTOs.
I don't even know that.
Like chief information officers or like chief technology officers or even like the VPs.
Yeah.
People that like entrepreneurs and started their own business.
Yeah.
And so there's like a very specific way in which you would coach them. That was, for me, the scariest bit was like, I've been working with people real junior and like entry level. But again, one thing I learned is that when it comes to job search and career development, fundamentally, people have the exact same questions.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to directors who are afraid to negotiate salary. And just regardless of where you are, the questions are there.
Did you feel like you ever had people who were like turn their nose up towards your advice. And we're just
absolutely.
she does not know what she's talking about. Like, I do all this stuff and she's just out here career coaching and she doesn't know.
Can you imagine like listening to getting advice from just this voice on the phone? Because we did all of our coaching via telephone.
Yeah.
They're like, who's this child trying to tell me what to do?
No, I'd be like, oh, her voice. So reassuring.
So soothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wise.
Yeah.
Voice of wisdom right there.
I mean, I take your advice, so clearly I love to hear it.
You love to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I took us on a tangent. I took us on a journey.
Yeah.
We're talking about first jobs.
Yes.
I'm going to get us back there.
Okay.
Was there anything that surprised you about trying to find your first job?
Okay. So I think there was there's two sides of this. So like definitely was surprised like when I was like very young and like trying to get like my first job, like how like discouraging it felt to like be rejected from a job. Like I legit was like, oh, am I just like bad? Like am I just like bad
how
at things?
Personal it feels.
It felt so personal. Or like I said earlier, like, oh, like I like one time my phone broke and like I got a call back for a job, but like they didn't hear from me for weeks because my phone was broken. So like that, like really like, I was like, wow, so they just don't want to give me the job even though I was not timely on answering them. And then when it came to like my like adulting, like real adult, applying for jobs was just like realizing like, like I didn't really know the difference between like unpaid and like paid. Like I think sometimes they kind of hide it in job descriptions. Like now it's a little better, but like I legit would like show up and like have such a good time in the interview and then they'd be like, this is not a paid opportunity. And I'd be like, oh, like
that is horrible.
I need money. So I was just like, okay. And I never called them back.
Oh my gosh, that is the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to scan for that at the university.
Yeah.
And it was like a required box that they would have to check whether or not if it was paid or unpaid.
Like I just told you, I didn't read job descriptions, so maybe it was there.
It was probably
maybe
there.
I was surprised because I didn't, do my due diligence.
No, it actually wasn't. There's a lot of, there can be sneaky ones out there.
Yeah, and I just didn't really believe in unpaid labor. Like I just truly was like, I need money. Like even if it's like
I feel like I have to live.
Yeah, even if it's like part-time, a little bit of change. Like I was like, what makes me not qualified to get these paid internships? You know what I mean? Like that also made me feel like I'm like, I know my worth,
And you're journalism too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
there was a lot of unpaid.
There was a lot of unpaid.
I only did one unpaid one, and also I had a job at the same time, like on campus, because I was like, I need money. Like I literally need to eat. But then like I was really determined after that. I was like, okay, like I want my next internship to be paid because I want it to be like what I want to do. Like I want to have enough experience so that like once I graduate, like, I can just like get right into what I want to do with my life, which I'm not doing right now. So
you had a vision. You knew where you were going.
I knew.
When I graduated and was ready to like look for my first, what I thought would be like my professional role, I was really surprised that no one was hiring. I graduated during the recession. 2009 apparently was not a good time to find a job at a newspaper.
That's probably how some people feel right now. But, we'll talk about that in a future episode.
Absolutely.
Because, oof.
But I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, right? It's like you go to school, you studied in this certain area for
they tell you that's what you need to do
years,
to get a job.
And you graduate looking for that role. There's supposed to be a role there for you.
The dream role.
It's a dream role.
Yeah.
And then, it is pretty surprising when nobody's hiring.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, but I'm ready to work.
Yeah. Especially because you're like, we were all sitting there in the classrooms and they told us like, you are going to get a job. They want you. They need you. They need your fresh perspective. And
they just didn't need it right then.
Yeah, not right then and
there. They didn't need it right now in 2009.
What were you surprised that like you just couldn't get like the job that you wanted? Was it like you wanted?
Oh, it was mass layoffs.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was very idealistic and thought I'm graduating with a journalism degree, communications. I'm gonna go work in media. I want to work like print journalism.
Yeah.
Print journalism. Okay. I'm like, this was a different time, Gina. It was a different time.
I was in classes and they were like, you're not going to get a job in print television if you want to. But that was like my dream too, though. Like I was
like a decade after I got Like I graduated.
I was like, I want to work at a magazine. And like, I was in like a magazine writing course and she was like, I don't even know why I teach this class though. Like she was like, it's all online.
Yeah, it's dying. It is dying for sure. And it's still there, but I will tell you, not like it used to be. So yeah, that was pretty surprising.
In the old ages.
In the old ages.
In the long, long time ago's days. But I feel like overall, like even though there's surprises, like it also feels like you just cannot prepare sometimes. Like I definitely feel like I was just kind of like doing whatever. Like I didn't feel like I like sat myself down and like if I had you, like a career coach, I probably would have been able to like have a more structured and like be prepared for this first job search. But I feel like once you start, you're kind of just like, well, people told me I have to do this. Like,
yeah, you're kind of just in it and then just figuring things out on your own.
Yeah.
But I think one place that, like I said, a lot of people start is going to be with friends and family.
Yeah.
Did you start there too?
No, like I really didn't like, I mean, maybe like friends-ish, but like I think I just like my friend group, we were all like doing like, my friends want to be like doctors. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it was very different. And then
your friends had aspirations.
Yeah, I didn't. I was just, I want to get paid. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be something. And then also like my mom's like a nurse. So like she didn't really get like how it was like very different. Cause I think it's like, for hers, it's a little more like structured and like not guaranteed, but like guaranteed. Like for me, it was like, you know, I just have to see if they like my writing and want to like hire me. So I didn't really ask a lot of friends. Once I got into like those spaces, I was like asking my peers who like had already done it. Like they were giving me career advice. And I think that's how I got like each of my next roles.
Yeah.
But yeah, not like friends and family. Like no one I was friends with wanted to do what I wanted to do.
So they didn't necessarily have that perspective or like like could really give you the advice to kind of help you take that next step.
Yeah. And I think like I was saying, like, you know, professors and all that stuff, they were telling me things that I just did not want to believe. Yeah. Like they were like, you need to work in local news for your first job. And I was like, why?
You would have been a great anchor.
Oh, I originally was a broadcast journalism major.
I love that for you.
But then I was like,
see that.
I was like, no. It's like, I don't want to do that. I really liked interviewing people though. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. But I just was like, I'm just going to write random stuff.
Yeah. My parents, I did ask my parents for advice. And my mom was of the time where it's like you start working for a company and you're going to work there forever. Yeah. The place that she's at now, she's been there for like 25 years. And so it's just, you know, you find a place that's going to be your forever home. Yeah. Which I don't think is a lot. That doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people's first jobs.
Especially because like your first job, you're probably like, dang, I kind of hate this, but I need it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I need this experience to prove to other people that I'm worthy of another job. Like that's how I kind of felt about my first job. I was like, I'm just here so that someone else will hire me that I actually want to work for.
That's a really good perspective going in though. Just like, and I think that's what a lot of people miss is just really knowing that the value of a first job isn't necessarily for it to be exactly what you want to do. Right. Like maybe it's not going to be in the industry or the role where you can see yourself long term, but really knowing that there's going to be some value that you can get from it and just being able to kind of translate that down the road. Like it should be one step to get you to the next place.
Yeah, I think kind of like we were saying, like there's some relevance somewhere. Because like, you know, we're both kind of saying the same thing where it's like, you know, your mom's advice or like my professor's advice, they just didn't feel like they were relevant and they were kind of dated to what we wanted to do or what we could do based off of like what jobs we were looking for and stuff like that. So I feel like overall, like, you know, my mom's advice was probably helpful when I was like trying to get a nice little retail job, like a nice little customer service job. But once I wanted to like have my big girl job, it wasn't as like helpful to me. But I think I'm also like a stubborn person and I'm a know-it-all. So
when you were searching for your first big girl job, was the job search process what you thought it was going to be?
I guess I don't think I had a lot of expectations.
What was the hardest part about, you know, job searching like that?
I think like the hardest part was like realizing that like there are so many people out there who are applying for the job that I want. Like I thought
that there are like 100,000 Ginas or like, yeah, you're like, I applied, but 100 other Ginas applied too. And they've got the same experience as me.
Yeah. Like I thought I was like overly qualified, but then I realized like there are a million of me who want exactly what I want.
I know. I think for me, the hardest part was like, oh, my first real job is not going to be what I studied for.
Yeah.
It's not going to be what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do all of the things I had really prepared myself to. And I mean, I'm older now and I have perspective and I can say that, okay, yeah, that didn't. But from there, I was able to work in recruiting and it set me on a whole different path, which I thoroughly love. But when you're just starting out and you're like, this job is not my passion. Yeah. I was told I was going to be able to do these things and they're not available. Yeah. Like that's pretty hard. It feels really hard.
Yeah. I think like realizing that your plan, because like I used to be such a planner, like realizing that your plan is probably not going to work out the way you wanted to. Like
be flexible, be adaptable.
Like, I mean, put that on your resume. Flexibility, adaptability. Because honestly, like if you can adapt to certain situations, like you'll find the job that you want or the job that you're good at. Because also that was like something for me. I was like, what am I good at? And I was just like, I don't know. So like, let me just do the things. Yeah. And then maybe someone will tell me. Actually, like
tell me what
I
I'm
wanted
good
to
at.
like hear from other people like, oh, this is what you're good at. And I'd be like, that's the job I'm going to do. Like, so maybe that's what made it easy for me. Like I was like, you know, the hard part was realizing you're not special. The easy part was realizing that like once you're in it, like if you put yourself out there enough and like you ask for the help from the people who have done it before, like you'll find out what you're good at.
And also, roles are pretty moldable. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know there's going to be certain tasks and responsibilities that you have to do as like key components of your job. Yeah. But I find that nowadays there's a lot of flexibility where you can really kind of play up and down parts of the job that really are like geared towards your strengths.
I feel like people are like creating their own jobs like now.
Create their own role.
Yeah. Because there's so many jobs that like, even the job that like I do, like wasn't even a thing that I thought would be a thing. Like, so I think that like there's so many jobs now that like you never would have thought are like a job. So like some people like finding their first job, like it may be something that is like brand new, like a brand new job. So it's like you get to be the person that, like you said, are like molding this job because it's like they've literally never hired anybody to do that ever. And they're just trying to figure it out. So look out for those jobs.
Look out for those. Look for the ones that seem like they have a lot of flexibility. They'll be the ones with only like 2 or 3 bullet points on the job description.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for growth there.
I mean, but those ones kind of scare me. When I see like a job description that's like, we're a fun company and we're trying to grow. Here's this role.
We're trying to grow is like code for you're going to do all the things.
All the things.
And we're probably not going to pay you enough.
Yeah. Like I think it's easy, but it's scary. Because it's like, I think if you're willing to advocate for yourself and that's like, because someone has to take the job. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many jobs out there where I'm like, don't apply for this job if it says this. But like, someone has to do it. So like, I think you have to be a person that like advocates for yourself. If it's your first job, like you need to be like, hey, like I'll do this, but I need this, this, and this. Because I think career growth
like that's a big ask for people in their first jobs, you know, to like fully be able to self-advocate or like know your self-worth or know boundaries.
Live in a delusional state. That's how people get, like if you're delusional, I'm telling you, you will be able to get stuff done.
There you go. Like bring a little bit of delusion into your career. I think that actually is somewhat good advice.
It's like, I'm not saying like be delusional as if like, hey, you studied, I don't know, like journalism, but you want to become a rocket scientist. Like, I'm not saying like that, but like.
You can't make that leap.
Yeah, I think that's a hard leap to make. But like, I think if you live in a little bit of a state of delusion where you're like, I can do this, but I have to like, you know, I have to like say something that I wouldn't normally say to be able to do it. Like,
I think there's a fine line between delusion and self-confidence.
Yes.
You got to teeter
so I define
it
as delusion because I'm not a self-confident person, but I'm like, that's delusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about other things that would have been really hard in your first job. Yeah. Were you comfortable or did you feel prepared talking about salary like when you were offered your first job? Because I know that's something that we talk about. It's like, it's a fundamental.
You're like saying this and I'm like, no.
No, I know. I wasn't either. And it's one of the things like when I coach people, salary negotiation is the one topic people do not want to talk about, but it's the one thing that they need. And I just know that when I was starting out, and even sometimes now, I'm like, I did not know how to start that conversation. Well, it's also like I just wanted the job.
I was taught that it was rude to talk about money. So like I was definitely just like, I remember when I got this like job at like a fancy like boutique for these handbags that people would know of if I said the name. But it was like very like New York, like boutique retail work. And I remember like the woman who interviewed me was like, first of all, she did not remember that I was coming in for an interview. She was like, why are you here? And I was like, I was called. And
she thinks you're a customer.
Literally. And so she was like, wrote down on a little piece of paper, you know how they do it. She was like, is this an okay salary? And it was literally like minimum wage. And I didn't know that I could like negotiate it because there were some people who were like, yeah, no, I asked for like $5 more and she said it was fine. And I'm like, I've literally probably just started negotiating salary like for this job like that I had. So no, I definitely like my first job, even the job that I got after my internship when they were like, we want to hire you, we can pay you this much. And like she made so much money. So she was like, oh, we can only pay you this. And I was like, that's a lot of money for like me. Like I was like, you know, I was working these minimum wage jobs. So I was like, ooh, that's a lot of money. So I was like, sure.
It was a lot of money comparatively, right?
But I didn't know I could ask for more.
You didn't know there could be more money.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. Because I think like when they say, is that okay? I'm trying to be like an agreeable person. And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. And like trying to seem grateful, even though I'm like, I'm the prize. Like you need me to do this
didn't know that
job.
you could actually say, well, actually, I'm really looking for something in this range.
I didn't even know that like you were allowed to do that. Like that's the thing. I didn't know
no one gave you
salary
permission.
Negotiation was allowed. Like I really truly was like, if someone's offering me a job, I need to take it. And I need to take whatever money they're willing to give me. So
no, I felt the exact same thing.
But you probably wouldn't tell people to do that. Now as a career coach, you'd be like, negotiate.
I'll always say negotiate. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right? And as long as you're being really realistic about what you're asking for and having done a little bit, you don't have to go crazy with the research, but just look online.
Yeah.
And if there's a range, like why go for the low end?
But also, like, was that a thing? Like, when you were first looking for jobs, like, being able to find a range, like, how did you, like, you know what I mean?
Back in the early 2000s, you mean, when we didn't have an applicant tracking system?
That's what I'm saying. Like, how did you do the research?
Yeah, you absolutely couldn't. You just took what was offered. And when I think about it, when I was in recruiting and when I would make contingent job offers, I never gave people a range. I'd be like, here's the starting salary. Is that okay?
See?
But if they did come back and say, well, actually, because of my experience, I'm looking for this, I'd be like, all right, let me take it back to the hiring manager.
I would probably be like, ooh, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they know
I'd be
things.
like, oh, this person asked for more.
Or like, they're
like,
confident.
can we do that?
Yeah.
What's the budget?
Yeah.
Who knows what budget is?
Because also, like, I think that's one thing that, like, people don't know a lot is that for some jobs, it's like, yeah, like the budget is almost a little open-ended. So like if you do negotiate, like obviously the hiring manager is going to be like, oh, like let me get back to you. But they're probably going to be like, yeah, we can do it.
They can do it. They've got a range.
Yeah.
Even if they say they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes they'll be honest and they'll be like, look, this is the top. This is all I can do.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like they're lying even when they say that though. Like now I have trust issues.
Are they lying? I don't know. I've been in recruiting and sometimes.
Yeah. But like for your grocery store job, you were probably just like, okay, like
well,
give me my money.
What I learned, there's even flexibility in grocery store jobs. So if you're hearing this and you're applying for a job somewhere and they're like, I'm going to pay you $15 an hour, you ask for $16.
I do remember some people who, like, when I was in high school were like, yeah, I'm getting paid this much. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much money. And they were like, yeah, my parents told me to ask for this. And I'm like, see, my mom wouldn't tell me that.
Where was that advice?
Yeah, like I didn't get that advice. But I do remember working at my little pizza shop job. And I remember I worked there for like a couple months and they were like, we're going to give you a 25-cent raise. And I was like, I was like, yeah. Like, I literally felt like, I was like, dang, I did this job really well. I made those pizzas real good.
25-cent raises.
Man.
Yeah, you thought you were rolling in it.
I thought I was so rich. I was like, $20 doesn't go as far as it used to. But like when I had $20 in my bank account, it's like, yeah, I can buy everything. But yeah, I really thought like.
Living paycheck to paycheck.
Literally. I mean, at least someone else was taking care of me at that time. So like, it was just for like clothes and food. But yeah, no, I think that it's so interesting because I didn't think that you could negotiate salary at all. Like I just thought you took whatever they gave you and that's that.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people think, but ask for more. Always ask for more.
Even if you're working at that fast food joint, just ask for a little more. And if they say no and you still want the job, I guess it's kind of like it is what it is. I don't think you would give that advice, but.
Well, it's like again, if they say no, that's fine. Yeah, you still got the job.
Have you ever like interviewed someone and they were like, I want this much money and it was like crazy. Like it was just like
absolutely
not something that was even like doable and something that like a CEO would make. Like
for sure. Well, actually with the product that I worked on before when I was helping technical job seekers, we were a matching platform. And so job seekers would have to put what salary range they were interested in. Okay. And then companies would actually, when they posted or had their roles listed, they would enter a salary range. So part of the matching process was to make sure that what the expectation was from the job seeker actually matched with what the company could offer.
We should still have that.
Should still have that.
We're going to have to cut that out.
We should still have that. Yeah, cut out some of the gray area.
Yeah.
That product was not profitable, and that's how I ended up in marketing. But
check life.
But we would get some interesting salary ranges on there for sure. And you would, with every kind of onboarding call that you have, you're asking about salary ranges and you ask like, oh, is this in line with what you're making right now? And they're like, no, that's what I'm just looking to make. And you're like, okay, great. So how did you come up with this number?
Right. And you're like, they just pulled it out.
That's just what I want.
Yeah. I mean, ask for what you want. Like, I think that's like the hardest part too when it comes to like salary though. It's like, you don't know what you want if you don't know. Like, if it's your first job, like you literally don't know. I think now there's more resources for sure. But like, I would say when we both were probably looking for our first like big girl jobs, you just didn't know what people were making because like I said, I thought it was rude to talk about money. So I feel like even now I feel a little icky talking about money. Like, I think we have like resources where people are like, oh, this is how much I make. But even now, like, I don't like telling people how much money I make. Like,
I wouldn't tell somebody how much I make unprompted. That's a weird vibe.
Not unprompted. Like, oh yeah, I make this much money. But like, I think I still feel a little icky. Just talking about money in general. I don't like talking about what's in my bank account. I don't like talking about, I don't like talking about money.
I'm like, do we have an episode on salary negotiation? Because I just want to go off. It's very important. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for your very first job and if you are interested in doing at least a little bit of salary research, just look at Glassdoor. If you could learn just like one resource to remember. Indeed is great in places where you can actually look at the job postings, but even Glassdoor too, because that will show you posted salaries by the different role types for those companies, and they're like real employees. So if you're looking like, I need just like one place to go, like definitely check that.
I love Glassdoor
great for interview
reviews.
Advice too.
I love like that, like you can look at like real people's reviews of companies.
You got to take it with a grain of salt though.
Honestly, for a company I worked for, someone did the best review ever.
Was it you?
Honestly, I wish it was me. It went viral. Like it viral within like our group of people who no longer worked at that company, but it was amazing. I was like, oof, I hope this stays up forever. This is good. Like it was a seething review of.
I feel like you're talking about it. Can you like give a little bit about what it said without like, we're not going to name names.
Honestly, I have a screenshot on my phone.
You're like, let me just pull it up and read it. Just give me the highlights.
I mean, it was just kind of talking about like the breakdown of why it wasn't like a healthy work environment. Like just like kind of like from like, it's true that like the top of the company really sets the tone for like everybody else and kind of just like why there was such a high turnover rate and like all that stuff. And it was good. Like it was made my day because I wasn't working there anymore. So I was just like, I agree.
Well, I mean, I think it made quite an impression on you if you still have it screenshotted on your phone.
I mean, it's somewhere in there, but like it was really good. I remember like sending it to people who like, because like friend of a friend and then a friend of a friend, like we're all just sending it to each other. And I was just like, ooh, thank goodness this exists, because like that didn't exist when we were younger. And like I do remember working in like kind of toxic places, and I wish I was able to research the company. Like I was able to kind of like, because like obviously I was told that you should read the about section when you're like looking at a job.
For sure.
Like,
and you should. You absolutely should.
To prepare yourself for an interview and stuff like that. But like also to help you, like that was like, oh, like you have to make sure it aligns with your values and stuff like that. But like, they just say things like, yeah, we sell really cool jeans.
Really true.
It's true. But like back then, like when I'm looking for retail jobs, like I don't care. Like, I just want the money.
First jobs, it's maybe not as applicable.
Now, like now in my career, like I want to work for like mission-oriented companies and stuff like that. But like I was like, this is not helping me realize
You're like I just need a job that will let me work from 5 to 9, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes.
And like maybe 12 to 5 on weekends.
And like I share a car with my sister, so I need to like make sure it works with her schedule. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Like
different needs.
Yeah. Like it was like the needs were like, oh, I need to make sure I have time to do my homework. Like, like it was not like, oh, like making sure that like this company is like aligned with my values and stuff like that. So I think that like overall, like now that these resources exist where you can see like actual employees and like what they think of the company, like super helpful.
Very helpful.
I think for your first job at least. Like you can be like, oh, I don't want to work here. Like even though you said take it with a grain of salt, but if there's so many.
Well, if you see one, I would say if you saw one like negative review, you could be like, oh, if it's contradictory to what everybody else is saying, you're like, maybe that was just their bad experience.
Yeah.
But if you see multiple and you're like, okay, this is a trend.
Yeah.
That's something you should definitely pay attention to.
Right. Makes sense. We talked about a lot of like first job stories and like looking for your first job, but I feel like there is some things that like you just don't know when you're at your first job, like how long to stay. Because I think now I see on the social medias, a lot of people are like, I started a job for a day and now I don't want to work there anymore, but I can't leave. So like I've heard that you should like job hop after a year at your first job so that you can increase your salary. Is that true?
100%. I mean, if you're enjoying it, you can stick around, right? But the reality is you're never going to make as much money just through getting increases at one job as you will moving from job to job.
So you're telling me I should get a new job tomorrow.
It's just the mathematics of it, right? Because when you think about it, companies have less money for merit increases, like growing the wages of current employees than they do for new employees.
I did not know that.
It's facts.
And I should know that.
It's facts. I mean, it's really, so that's why when you think about, especially if your motivator is money, right? If your motivator is salary increases, it's going to be, you're going to get there faster from moving from one job to another.
Yeah.
But it's like if you enjoy it and you're like, I'm doing okay, I'm making good money. You want to stay there, stay there.
Yeah. That makes sense. I feel like, when you're at your first job, though, like, like you said, like your mom has been at her job, the same company for like years.
She's a lifer.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel like you probably get that advice where you're like, should you leave your first job after like a certain amount of time? Like, what is the time limit? So like, how long are you supposed to stay at your first job? And
again, like things have really changed. When I first started in recruiting, reviewing paper applications, one of the things that we looked at, one of the criteria, we looked for job stability.
Okay.
And so what we did is we evaluated the amount of time that somebody spent at a specific company and then kind of how much time in between was there between when they ended that role and started at a new role, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking for stability and you're looking for gaps in employment.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were really looking for people who had spent more than a year there, at a company, who were, started one job immediately after another. And the reality is like things have really changed. People don't look down on job hopping the way that they used to. So I would say like the tone has really shifted within the last 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And so if you're at your first job and you're like, okay, I don't really like it here. how long do I have to stay here?
Yeah.
Think 6 months to 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year would be great. That gives you a really good kind of first year of experience. One, it actually gives you time to learn a role and really develop those skills. So it's more about you have more opportunity to gain from this position.
Yeah.
More opportunity to learn. But like if you really can't stand it, just stick it out for 6 months.
Yeah.
While you're at that job, look for a new one. It really is easier to get a new job while you're already employed. But I would just say like everybody's different.
Yeah.
So if you find like you're in a situation where I'm like, this is toxic, this doesn't fit my schedule, like whatever the reason would be where it's like you can't fit or you don't want to stay and you can afford to not stay, then I would say you just got to do what's right for you.
Yeah, because I think as long as you like eloquently explain it to your next employer or whatever, like it should be fine. I also think that like one thing that helped me was like moving teams. Like sometimes it's the team you're on. And I know that's not like relevant to like every type of job, but I think that like for me, like at one point I was like, maybe there's just like an opportunity somewhere else in this company. Because like sometimes you really like a company. You just don't like the team that you're on. And sometimes there's transferable skills that you can just use somewhere else.
Gina, I'm so glad that you said that because that's really, really great advice. And if you think about like where you could be potentially having your first job, my first job was in a grocery store in retail, right? Started out bagging groceries, became a cashier, decided, I don't know if I want to be in like the front checkout situation. Yeah. Moved to cosmetics, got to play with makeup for a couple of years. Fun. Then I moved to general merchandise, was stocking shelves. And actually with that company, that's where I got my first recruiting internship. Oh, and so there's so much that you can do without even moving like
sometimes
companies,
you want
right?
to just work in the deli.
Sometimes you want to decorate cakes.
Give out some cold cuts, decorate some cakes. Like you don't want to be handling people's money.
Yeah, you don't have to.
I will say, like, I think like sometimes when you're in retail, there's different opportunities. You just don't know. Because I know there were some people who like, you don't know. Because sometimes I feel like they're weird during the like interview process. And they're like, yeah, we can have you like in the stock room. And they like expected that they would be like working the cash register or something. But there are ways to like kind of shift like. So I think that's helpful to know. Like, if you're at your first job and there's something that you're doing and you really don't like it, like there might be another opportunity for you at that company.
For sure.
One thing that would probably be helpful to our viewers is like to know if there's like warning signs that it's time to move on from your first job. Like, do you have any?
Absolutely. I would say if you have the Sunday scaries every day of the week, it might be time to move on.
The Monday through Friday scaries.
Monday through Friday. The week-long scaries. Yeah. I mean, a little bit of Sunday scaries are natural, right? Like,
because you just had fun on the weekend and now you have to go punch numbers or like do something you don't want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're dreading going to work, it might be time to move on. If you find that you're in a toxic work environment, you got to kind of outweigh like, okay, how beneficial is it for me to like stay here?
I think that like both of our parents' generations were probably the people who were like, you're supposed to be miserable at work.
Stick it out.
You're not even supposed to have a good time. So like I think about people who like sometimes we do like see people commenting on videos and they're like, some people don't have the luxury of doing this. But it's like, no, like you really should find something that like makes work a little more bearable and you're not like very miserable.
Yeah. I mean, you can have some fun at work, right? Like it shouldn't be.
Find a friend.
Find a friend. Hey, friend.
Hey. Friend. But yeah, I think that like for me, like my warning signs really are like if I feel like I'm kind of being disrespected. Like, because I think that like my philosophy on work is that like we're all here to work. Like we're all here because we want this job or need it. And we're trying to do something. Like every job, there's a task, there's everything we're supposed to be doing. I just feel like if there's people that are disrespecting you, especially like above you or whatever, like you really should like evaluate whether one, you either want to confront it or if you're like me and you just want to go somewhere else.
Like, if you want to ignore the situation and just like
secretly apply to jobs every single day.
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting. Or loud quitting.
Loud quitting.
Like, I don't believe in quiet quitting. I think you should
know my intent.
Say it with your chest. So I feel like this is a good segue to kind of answer some questions.
Okay.
We have some questions from some job seekers. Johnny is asking, how am I supposed to get hired for my first job if I don't have any experience yet? I keep getting rejected because I don't have enough experience on my resume. Okay. But I can't get more experience if no one will hire me. What should I do?
Vicious cycle, right? It's kind of, something that we saw a lot, especially at the college level, especially when you're looking for your first internships, right? Or that first kind of full-time job, you're looking for this role to be that stepping stone where you get all of that experience that you would put on a resume. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like, how do I get that experience if you're not going to give it to me or if you're expecting me to already have it? So the one thing I would say is that a lot of college students and just students in general have this misconception that the only type of experience that you should put on your resume or speak to is going to be paid experience. Yeah. Absolutely not true, right? And we do so much. Students do so much. You know, if you're in high school or if you're in college, you know, you might have been involved in student organizations, maybe you're student council, maybe you're a part of like Greek life. Volunteering, absolutely. If you're doing work study, class projects even. Class projects are great for showing a breadth of experience or how you used or like how you practically used some of the things that you're learning about. Yeah. And so there really are a lot of opportunities just in this kind of like student daily life that are relevant to include on a resume.
That makes sense. Because honestly, like I think my first paid internship, the way I got it was like, we had this like huge class project where we had to like create our own online like article about a thing. And I was like, well, it's there. It's online. Like I can literally share that with people. So that makes a lot of sense.
You're like, look at this thing I did. And I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is like relevance. And so once you've got that really great information on your resume, that's when you can start like applying and interviewing.
If you're ready for more job search advice from us, you should make sure you just drop a comment for us. And, you know, if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover in a future video, definitely let us know. Or share your own stories based off of what we just talked about today. And we'll see you next time so we can talk about how to make job searching fun.
Is it possible?
We'll find out. And also, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel, rate our podcast, and leave us a review so, you know, you can listen to more of it. And we'll see you next time.
Okay, good. You're funny.
You're funny. Should we just turn this into like a network television show? Anybody got an in?